Good day, everyone. My name is Shannon Susko. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm just going to share my slides here. There's not a better time to plan than in a crisis. And today we're going to work through a step-by-step method that I've been working with my clients for many years, but especially over the last definitely 8-12 weeks. Just before we get going, we're going to put up in the chat window a link to a playbook that you can download. And I really wanted to make sure, and we wanted to make sure that you had some good takeaways, some good actions, and some good guidance on what you need to think about, what you've already done to confirm what you've already done, and also to think about what else needs to be done as we work through this. And as we know, planning is an ever-evolving event, and the things that make us plan faster or slower are the things that work around us. So first off, we'll get the playbook out there. It should be in the chat. While that's happening and while people are joining, I just want to pop up a poll question just to understand the audience we have today, and as well just to see who's on, and it'll help sort of tailor the discussion we have today. I'm going to talk probably for the next 45 minutes or so, maybe 50 minutes, and then we'll open it up for a Q&A at the end. I think that's a good way to do it, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions. My info will be up there for anyone who has questions after the fact. And the poll is up and running right now. We'll give you a couple more minutes or seconds to fill out that poll while other people are thinking about downloading the playbook, if you didn't see it in the pre-mail. And that will be in the chat window throughout the whole time. So if you're thinking there's a whole lot of things going on, I guess we're sort of kicking off with a bang. Okay, so okay, good to see the results up there. So we have a pretty good sort of coverage of different types of leaders, team members, and other positions. It's helpful for me to understand that. Thanks so much for replying. And we're just going to kick in with a quick question. So when you see this, and this is in the playbook, but just write it down anywhere, just put it in your head. What's one word that comes to mind when you see this picture? One word that comes to mind when you see this picture, and I think this is a pretty obvious one from normally how I work on the one word. My word, hyphenated, cheater, is cash is king. And cash is king, you think that you know that, you think you really know that, but there's no better time to live this. And part of this step-by-step planning, and what I hope is that we can work through step one is all about planning cash, but we also think about what does that mean for our ongoing business, our ongoing team. It doesn't matter if you're a CEO, you're heading up, you're part of the executive team, you're a leader of a team, you're an owner of a business. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's cash that will get us through any time, any place, anywhere. And our focus as leaders on cash, I think, has been long forgotten. And a lot of times we think of in fiscal, more accounting practice, more rule-based. And a lot of people think, profit is a noun. But you can't put profit in a wheelbarrow. You can absolutely put cash in a wheelbarrow and take it to the bank. And so I want you to think about that as we work through this, as we go forward. So this is my journey as an entrepreneur, as a leader, co-founding 2 companies. This whole framework and everything we're going to work through, it's over 20 years old. We actually grew it up in our business, our first business, and we met a lot of downturn markets along the way. But the practices that we found are practices that we want all companies to put in place in good times and in bad times. So let's jump in. The key objective of this webinar, of this time, is all about planning. and taking hold and making sure that we're thinking about planning in a very methodical way, but also one that can grow with us, one that becomes a system. And the whole reason we're doing this is we're always trying to build the longest cash runway we can, always. Doesn't matter what time it is, when it is, we always want to build the longest cash runway. As leaders, we want to have a good handle on what that is. There's not one of the CEOs that I work with today, and I work with CEOs all over the world and leadership teams, as well as coaches, who don't know their days of cash. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. I also want to make sure that we're not only talking about cash, we're going to work in the execution step. What should we do now? What should we be thinking about? And what should we be confirming? Along with our people plan, as well as our strategic plan. Lots of people have really thrown strategy out the window, but it's very, very important, as we know, in order to ensure that our business works well through all these systems. And we think of business in 6 systems. We have the people systems, that's our cultural system, our cohesive and our human system. These are as important now as they've ever been at any time. And then we think of cash, execution, and strategy. And the systems along the bottom here are what we call hard edge systems. So strategy would probably be challenged. It's got a little bit of hard edge and soft edge, but the soft systems here are the most important ones. It's all around people, but we've got to put them all together. That's always a tough thing to do, especially at a time like this. So just to put that into perspective around the systems, I want to just level set on how we think of a business. We look at, and we drew this in the early days of my first business, all around a house framework and building it up and growing it up. And we think of it from the cultural foundation, the CEO, core purpose, core values, our 10 to 30 year goals. We then look at the 2 walls of the house on either side, the cohesive system, right? This is making sure that the whole team is committed to the team result and will put the team result ahead of their own. And then we think of the human system. This is all about how do we work together, the design of the organization, what function do I play, and what is expected of me in the role that I volunteered for and that I'm going to deliver for the team. And then at the very top of the house, we have the team leaders, we have the team. It doesn't matter really what goes on in that house. Not at all. This represents any team. Those 3 systems actually represent any team. And then in the house, of course, we're going to have the execution system, the cash system, and the strategy system. And we know right now that most organizations are really focused on execution and cash. And I don't disagree with that. It's just as we roll through this time, and a lot of us are uneasy and unsure because we don't know how long this time will be. We know that the new normal is opening up and expecting for some of our businesses to operate very differently than we expected. And in other cases, we have businesses that are overachieving their plan and need to actually adjust things that way. So this is a framework. This is a framework that exists in every organization. And you see that little gold bar that goes through the middle. That's the 3 hack. That's your 3-year highly achievable goal. Now, a lot of people could laugh and say, a 3-year highly achievable goal, I'm trying to get to the end of May. I'm trying to get to the end of June, Shannon. And I understand that, but we need to actually get, of course, that, put away, put those fires out, and then we need to look out to where we're going. We need to look out to where we're going, and then we need to look back. And that's what this is all about. It's focusing in on the planning that needs to take place, and we can think of 30-day, we can think of 90-day, we can think of 1 year, 3-year, and 10-year. And there's not a company that I haven't worked with in the last 8 weeks, so we haven't replanned. We haven't evolved the plan based on what's going on externally and what's going on internally in their organization. And I don't think there's one company I know out there that hasn't done this. But it doesn't mean that we don't keep looking at where we're going. And a lot of people, if you're on a nice trajectory in your organization before this hit, there's a nice straight line to where you wanted to go. And maybe you have experienced many years of, great growth. And that's, that's well warranted. We want to be able to make sure we can take that growth and get us to where we're going. But then there's others, and I've been on the journey of not a straight line to where we want to get to for our 10-year, 3-year, 1-year. I've been definitely on a journey where it looks more like, you know, we're driving sometimes, I'm making decisions and a little bit around the block and back. And I know a lot of organizations feel this way, and they actually don't want to take their head up and look out. But I encourage you, as we work through this, I want you to think about looking out. And I want you to think about and confirming some things that we know are true, and we can check them off. And as we look around to other leaders that we interact with, we can check in with them to see, you know, are they doing that too? I can tell you, everyone's looking at their purpose and goals. They're over communicating, and over communicating means that as leaders, if we think we've communicated enough, one message, a message, many messages, we normally haven't. And so it gets to the point where once you're tired saying it, I'm sure we've over communicated it. But I know as a CEO, I thought I had communicated things, I'd over communicated things, and it was never enough. So just keep that in the back of your mind. And then of course, the last thing that we've got to keep in front of us is cash is king. The big thing is, this is a repeatable growth system. And so everything that we learn at this point, all of these steps that we're going to walk through, are going to be very similar to anything you would do in normal times, good times and bad times. This is a framework you can use at any time. So if we take it as mapping it out step by step, I love this picture that McKinsey & Company put out there quite a few weeks ago. It seems like a long time ago, but it was probably about 5 or 6 weeks ago in one of their communications. But I liked this view and thinking of what we're looking at as horizons, right? And what we're working through. And right now, you know, a lot of teams in the beginning, you know, they're just trying to take care of the immediate challenges. And then they're going, how are we going to take care of our near-term cash issues, right? We've put some of that to bed. We've actually, you know, have a better picture of that. And now it's, what does it look like to return back to business? And then it's reimagining what that's going to be and for how long. And this is where we are, and where some organizations are sort of stopped dead and not sure what should be those next steps. And then that's why the framework today and the steps I'm going to share with you today is not only to extend your cash runway, of course, but it's really to give you a bit of a, you know, I guess a roadmap in order to, you know, take this on. Yep, got this, got this, got this. Yep, oh, I didn't think about that. And that's what this is all about. So the first step in all of this, and I call it step 0, is we've got to take care of ourselves first. And I know that, you know, in one of the webinars earlier this month that I was a part of with a panel of great entrepreneurs and leaders, it was all about the first step was taking a step back and taking care of ourselves. When we're at a time like this, we don't actually. And so I like to put this in. And what I did is I grabbed just a view of this so that you can have this, and it's in the playbook. This is something that I use every day, and it's just a personal one-page plan. Been using it for decades, actually, since I learned about Vern Harnish's one-page plan, but I turned it into a personal one. And what I suggest you do in this is go back, confirm your core values, confirm your core purpose, right? Mine is to ensure no one was as desperate as I was to grow up a company. Hence why I do what I do each and every day, and even more so at this time. Then we have our 10-year goal. We have our 3-year goals. We need to check in on those from where we are. I know I had owners of businesses that I work with, and their 3-year goal was to exit their business and retire and all those things, and that timeline might be a bit different. In other cases, I've had owners of businesses that their business has, you know, exceeded their plans this year, and maybe it will be sooner. So it's just good to check in on these things. Of course, your 1-year goal, I seem to do this around September and not January. I think I'm just wired from a school basis. And then of course, writing down what are your top personal priorities right now. This just helps us level set and take a step back and think about ourselves first as leaders. I didn't want to not do this because as CEOs, as executives, as team leaders, team members, if we're not in good health and good frame of mind, It's really hard to lead our team through that. And I know myself, having gone through the first downturn in a market as a CEO, I took care of myself last. And you become very cranky. You're not in your best frame of mind to actually think about the things that we need to do as a CEO and as a leader. So for this, one of the questions I've been asking a lot is, what's the difference between a startup early stage CEO and a COVID-19 CEO? There's really nothing at all. And you know, a CEO after COVID-19, there's nothing. Because no matter what, if we're leading an organization, all the things I just talked about, from core purpose, our long-term goals, our near-term goals, our annual goals, our 90-day goals, right? Consistent communication, over-communicating, and a cash runway all matters. And it matters now too. The big thing is that our focus is even more so on cash right now, because we've all been sort of hit with a cliff, and we're looking at it and trying to manage it to get through a time where we don't know how long it is. So when we think about this, after we do step 0, I can't tell you enough. I use this one-page personal plan every 90 days for over a decade. It just keeps me grounded. But with that, I'm looking in at business. And the first step we want to take is to map your cash from the bottom up. And we want to go to the bottom up to face the brutal facts. We then want to line that up to our execution plan, what we thought it was going to be and what we need it to be. And then we need to line up of what team of players do we need to actually help us execute. And then last but not least, we want to look in at where we're going, not to ignore our 10-year, we're going to confirm that, but really to look in at our 3-year highly achievable goal, because this is where strategy and execution meet. And we may have to evolve our strategy. We may have to pivot quickly. And some of you might be listening and going, evolve it. We did a 180. Absolutely. And so all of these things, though, we can't go 1, 1, 1, 1. We have to actually do a little bit of each as we're working through all of this. And that's why we always think of this as a system. These are steps that we need to start and keep going. So the map your cash step by step. Now this is going to be a whole lot of information. I'm just going to tell you off the bat. And there's off of my website, there's a whole full webinar on this, but I'm just going to step it up. A lot of people have already done this, is why I'm not spending a lot of time here. But step 1, go to the bottom. And go to the bottom means go to your bank account and look at what is the factual number of dollars of cash in your bank account available for operating. If you're part of a big organization, it would be operating cash. If you're part of a small organization, it's still operating cash. There's tons of other sources of cash out there. Lots of government subsidies, loans, grants. If you don't have someone on your team who's absolutely focused on being the expert on that right now, please make sure you find someone who's really detailed oriented to get them to own that on your team, because we've got to layer in the other sources. We then have to look at our bookings and backlog. And I know if you're a face-to-face non-essential business, your bookings and backlog might be 0. And we're figuring out another way. I do understand that. And then our pipeline, what do we have coming in? What business do we have coming towards us? And lots of people are looking at, how do we get our pipeline, build back up? What's the validity of our pipeline? And then we have to go through our scenarios. And I'm going to talk a bit more about this when we go to the execution step. But when I talk about scenarios, it's the best case, worst case, most likely case. This is really, really important that we actually have a great conversation, not only as CEOs and leaders, but we do that with our team. Everybody's got anxiety around these scenarios and are playing out different ones. And we need to actually understand, which one are we going to choose? Which pieces do we need to do? And so those scenario planning is important. Then we need to actually keep all of this alive. We're not going to do it once, and I know you haven't done it once. What I want to see done, what my best case scenario is, we want to look at this every day. We want to look at our cash runway. And I know I've had people go, that's crazy that you could look at your cash runway every day. Maybe every week, maybe every month, but I would challenge you to get a hold of this every day. We want to know the days of cash in our business, and there's different tools available to help us do this. Now, this is a really ugly slide, and I sort of had a little conversation with myself whether I should put it in or not, but I really wanted you to see this build, because I know you've lived through this. And a lot of people say, how do you get to your days of cash? It's the cash in the bank plus any other factual dollars available to you, whether it's a line of credit, a loan, a grant, whatever it is, divided by your cost of operating your business per day equals how many days of cash. And then we're going to layer in what kind of booked, the probability of our booked backlog coming true, our pipeline and our transactions coming true. And then we have our scenario planning. That's our execution scenario planning I'm going to talk through. And then we should keep looking at this every day. I polled a group of 10 CEOs I work with, and I just wanted to know what their stress tactics were right now, i.e. removing stress. Every one of them, of course, said exercise. There wasn't one that didn't. Getting out, getting walking, keeping our feet moving. But a few of them said is actually shutting down every day, looking at our days of cash runway. It just keeps them going. Yep, we got this. Yep, and tomorrow we got to do this. Next month we've got to get that done. It's all about needs to get through this. And so in order to do this, one of the things that is obvious, but I want to say it, is we've got to take our profit loss statement that you probably get from your finance, your bookkeeper, your CFO, whatever size business you are, and turn it into a lumpy cash-based P&L. And at the very bottom, you put a cash in, cash out. Now, I know I got pushed back many years ago from my finance team in wanting to do this. But this is a leadership team way to actually forecast and view cash together, make decisions together, and keep it in front of us together. Now, you can do it weeks and months, and you heard me say days of cash. I like to go to days of cash because people can quickly do that math. When you say 14 days, that's to payroll. And it creates the urgency we need to keep moving. It's very transparent with cash in my business. It was our business, and I wanted everyone to actually understand our cash position at all times. But there's no time better than now in order to do that. And so we would build this out, and every one of my clients have built this out, and they've sort of rejigged this because it's really important that we have this view of our days of cash. We're then going to go look at execution and then people, and they all play into assumptions we're going to have in regards to what does our cash runway look like. Now, I just popped this one in. The gray boxes that you see build is prioritize, of course, your accounts payable. I know you're already doing that. Prioritize your sources of cash. Where's the most likely place you can get a source of cash, accounts receivable, and who you can serve. Who's the most likely to buy? Your core customer might have changed, right? I always say I'm an optimist, I'm an entrepreneur, but plan for the worst, work for the best. That's why I like to build plans up. And then prioritize daily. So this cash map review, put it into a daily huddle. Most teams are really connecting daily because we're all virtual. I really think we need to continue doing that. I'm a huge fan of the daily huddle. You need to keep it simple and keep it dynamic. Now, so that's cash. That's really quick. There's lots more info, and I'm happy to provide more info on this. It's foundational. We want to actually take advantage of this time, create that lumpy cash forecast for your P&L, and line it up with the leaders in your business, and never stop looking at it and making decisions on it. Step 2 is all around execution. And we had a plan. I say that nicely. Everyone had a plan, and I know you have a plan. But we need to keep this dynamic and in front of us. And then we're going to apply to people, and we're going to do step 4 around the strategy. Now, this looks like a whole lot of steps, and it could turn off a lot of people, and I was going to build it up, and I decided not to. I've decided not to. And one of the big things is around taking these steps. This is just things to get ourselves sort of grounded on what's going to happen. I'm going to walk through each one of these steps, and each one of these steps are in your playbook that has been downloaded. I can see there's a few different people getting it or getting into it. But each of these steps are in there, and each of the areas where there might be a term or acronym that you might not know, I tried to put a reference there for you, just so you can, and after the fact, you can go either watch the webinar, look at the online blog, whatever it is. So I tried to actually line this up. So step A of step 2 around execution, this is an obvious one. We're going to confirm why the company exists. More than likely, I don't have a company that their core purpose changed. We're going to confirm the core values of the organization. There's no way that I've seen any company that has changed. And we're going to confirm the 10 to 30-year goal, if you have one. And the big, hairy, audacious goal, coined by Jim Collins, is one to actually just map out where we're going. And again, there's not a company I work with that, because of the crisis we're in now, that their 10-year goal has changed. It hasn't. How they're going to get there might have changed, but their 10-year goal has not changed. So this is just an example as popping up. The core purpose in this example, to create an organization others value, to create a great place to work. Core values, happy to come to work, happy to leave. Hungry enough to make a difference every day. Humble enough to want to learn every day. And then the 10 to 30-year goal in this example, to be a leading global payment service provider. And then how do you make money? For every merchant, every company they put on the platform, they make money. These are the core purpose, core values, 10 to 30-year goal, and profit per X of my first company. These are still my core values today. So we need to confirm that. It's an easy to go look. What I had written in the playbook, if you don't have all of those down, or they're not clear and known, I'm known for a statement of gut it out. And I definitely recommend that you work with your team. There's no time like now to actually agree on the core purpose of the organization. There's no time like today to agree upon your 10 to 30-year goal. I know that sounds crazy. You're like, the house is on fire. Yep, we got to get water on the house, but we still need to know where we're going and why we're doing it. Core values, I don't recommend gutting out core values. I usually use a great exercise to keep them alive from Jim Collins' Mission to Mars. And then I sort of put those in there, those references in the playbook, so you have them. The next step is the market map. And this might not be a known tool, but this is a nice live strategic picture that you can get up on the wall. And every one of my clients have leveraged the market map. And the market map is about understanding where you fit in the arena you're playing. And most arenas have changed in some way, shape, or form of what it looked like pre-pandemic and now what we're living through right now. And so we want to update it. If you've never drawn a map like this of your business, it's simply about, on the far left, you're looking at your core customers, your segments, right, who you serve. And then the one in where you see US banks, Canadian banks, that's all about how you go to market, the channels. And then you see, I use the example of my first business, Paradata. And on the far right, that's all the places we spent money. All the places where money, those are all our suppliers. Above Paradata, those are organizations that we are members of and interactive with. And below Paradata, those blue post-its, those are our competitors. And we want to map it out. And what we've seen now in this day around the world, there are so many new competitors in marketplaces that no one expected to see some of these companies. And I know you can probably relate to that. And there's nothing better than to get this picture up on the wall right now so that you can keep track of what's moving around in your arena, in your marketplace. This is a tool that I've used for over 20 years. It's on the wall, we keep it alive. And if you don't have one, again, I love reference to where you can learn how to actually draw one of those step by step. It's really basic though. I just want to say it. and it can get really detailed as we overlay things. Those green Post-it notes where there's a dollar figure and then percentages, that's where the percentage of revenues are coming in. And I have lots of clients where the percentage of revenue is shifted from one key area to another area. And that one key area might have been face-to-face in-person business. That's not happening right now in their marketplace. And they've shifted all their resources and efforts to the other ways they're doing business. It's just a great picture for you and your leadership team to have, so you're looking at the same thing, talking about the same thing, and having a discussion. The third thing is all around the key trends and brutal facts. Now, this isn't rocket science, this one for sure, but a lot of people will skip over this step thinking we all see the same thing. We all see the same trends, and we all see the same brutal facts. And that's, in my experience, not true when we get a group of leaders together. One of the things that I do, and I make sure that when I go into this step, is I usually ask some questions to understand the frame of mind of my team. One is, how long do you think the country will be locked down? Now, I've been asking that for weeks and weeks, and you can see some different answers that, come forward. When do we get back to a new normal? Well, a lot of people are like, what is a new normal? What will that look like? And we get a chance to have a really good discussion about that and the timing around that. And the last one is, how long will it take for the economy to recover? And I've been asking these for I guess, probably 8 weeks, even earlier than that, because some of my clients were doing business in China and Asia, and as we know, those countries were hit first. So we've been asking these questions because it's really rolling and it's global. And but we've seen different dates come forward, and it really depends what business you're in, what area of the world you're in, what country, what state, what province, and we really need as a leadership team to level set on that. And then we just want to have a brainstorm. We want to have a brainstorm around what are the things that are the brutal facts. I usually start with those, and we're going to brainstorm them and get them up on the board. Now, if this looks, I just cut a picture out of this. I've been using a tool called mural.co. There's also another one called Miro, M-I-R-O, but they're really good virtual, like on the wall, sort of whiteboard tools. Mural.co is the one that I've sort of fell into and using. I find it's the most flexible one to recreate that brainstorming in a face-to-face room or doing it online. So this was a session that I recreated for this. And these are just things that we've got to get our heads around as leaders. This is a step not to be skipped, because we do have to get our collaborative brain as leaders on the same page as what we see, what we believe are the brutal facts, and then what are the key trends or things that have shifted. Then from there, you're going to go to step D, what I call scenario planning. And I mentioned that in the step 1 around mapping your cash and understanding those scenarios. And a P&L is a profit loss statement. And we want to actually build up the scenarios, best, worst, most likely, and we want to actually then take those assumptions and we want to put that into the profit and loss statement. Now, I'm sure lots of people have done it, but most people don't do it at a cash level. They're doing it more at an accounting level. And I know that sounds geeky, but we've got to imagine and come up with what we're going to assume to be the best, worst, and most likely case. Now, what I recommend is you do the most likely first with your team. If you're a single owner in a business, you're going to sit down and do this, with yourself, and you're going to talk to someone else, your advisor, whoever you might have in your group. If you're a 2-person leadership team or more, you're going to do this together. And we want to actually brainstorm what are most likely. We just said, here are the brutal facts, here are the trends. What is this going to look like then for our business in the most likely case? And we want to say, I'll share some examples there. Electronic payment is set up in our most likely case. We're going to have a partnership, our top partnership of XYZ company will remain strong. Our support program we'll be able to support that virtually. That is going to be true in our most likely scenario. Some of our new partners will generate some revenue. And then we're going to write down those pink little Post-it notes you see there. Those are some numbers around what the gross revenue could be. And we're looking at a 12-month period. What could be for, how many large deals, what customers could we serve, how many people in our team, what would our profit look like, our cash look like in our most likely scenario. Okay, so that's brainstorming it. Then from there, I always go up because we're building, right? We're building. If all of that is true in the most likely, then we go to the best case. And the best case is, adding in some things that will, build on our most likely. And we're going to say, if all those came true, this is what the difference would be to our gross revenue, to the number of customers and partners we would serve, to our head count. We'd have a few more people in our head count, or it might remain flat, flat in our best case scenario. But this is the discussion. We need to paint the picture with our leaders to actually come together into one view. And then the last step here, and you probably are thinking, why didn't you do this first, is a worst case scenario. I find as humans, if we can get the most likely on a piece of paper and then go as our optimists as we are in entrepreneurs and business, is go to our best, then we can actually go to the worst and say, what won't be true, right? What won't be true? And we're taking away things. And you can see in this particular example, there's a core group of yellow. Those are the yellow squares. I call them Post-its, but they're virtual Post-its, are remaining at each one of those. Those are the things that absolutely need to be done, no matter what. And why I do it this way is then we get really focused as a leadership team, as a company, that these are the things that absolutely have to get done. We get rid of all the other noise and go, no matter what, we're going to do this first. And this is the result we're going to get. And then that's where I say plan for the worst, work to the best. Then we can say of those lighter green Post-it notes and the most likely, could we add some of those in to take us up? And then we have to plan, we have to level up with these assumptions to that cash-based profit loss statement. My best recommendation is to just do a save as, call it worst case, save as most likely case, save as best case, and line these up. Because the next step that we take after this is thinking about how do we resource this, both cash and people. And these are assumptions that we're saying, in the worst case, these things need to be done. And then here are some things that we believe in the most likely that will happen. We're going to take advantage of those. And then we're going to keep our eye for the opportunity that maybe we'll get a best case. But this is the build we're looking at. This is the scenario planning that a lot of people have skipped. And what they've done is they've just taken their revenue down, 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 down. Instead, that's really hard on our human psyche to do that, actually, quite honestly. And building up, as hard as it is to go to the bottom first, once you go there and get comfortable with it, you actually want to build up and you have a different mindset in order to do it. So we really have to paint the picture. Paint the picture of those different scenarios. Take the time to do this. I've done this with teams of companies that are, close to $1 billion, and I've done this with companies that are, less than 5 million. And it takes, a couple hours. Plan to do this. Find the time. I can't stress that enough, because then once we have that view, we get to go back and we say we can confirm where we're going. That's our 3-year highly achievable goal. And what I put in your workbook is a really step-by-step, what are the questions we need to ask? And if you don't have a 3-year highly achievable goal, no big deal. I do suggest you gut it out to help guide your decision-making. A 10-year goal is to help you make decisions in the day for here and now. So we make decisions that we know can get there. A 3-year highly achievable goal, looking out that far, really helps us make great decisions and empowers our teams to make decisions to do it. So these are the questions, if you don't have one, that you want to ask and you want to gut out. This is a gut out. You can gut out a 3-hag. It doesn't take very long, quite frankly, but at least it gives you a guide on what decisions you need to make and what you think's going to happen from here going forward. And it helps you sort of, you know, that crazy, I guess line that was going all over the place as we were driving there. People are feeling that. And at least this way, we know that when we get to the stop sign and we need to make a decision, do I go straight, left, or right? We know why we're making that decision, and it empowers everybody to do so. So then we're going to go to our 1 year highly achievable goal, the 1 HAG, your annual plan. I call it a 1 HAG because I want to keep that highly achievable. These things need to be highly achievable. The closer it gets, the higher risk, and we're in this. Some people's fiscal year end is 7 months away, right? And we want to level set that. We want to get our heads around it. And if your year end is at the end of the year, say December 31st, or I know a lot of Canadian companies and Australian companies, the year end could be all over the year. Just fine, when we're doing this scenario planning, find 12 months out. But we do have to re-up whatever we said our annual plan was to whenever the date is. So we want to go in, I just grabbed an example of how we would come up with, just really brainstorm up our annual plan, the revenue, the cash, the widgets, what flows through your business. In this pair data example, it's new merchants. We have to add new merchants, and we have to have so many merchants on the platform, and we would have to adjust that based on this time. We'd either adjust it up because more people want online payment, or down because they don't, and we know at this time they want it up. And then we'd probably adjust what we thought the top priorities were when we planned it. The beginning of the year, we adjust those to what's needed. And so right now, we did that scenario planning. We're going to take it and apply it to our annual plan. Okay, we're going to take it and apply it to your annual plan. So again, it's worst, most likely best. So plan for the worst, but work to the best and agree on what we're going to do. This is how we get the buy-in. So in your workbook, again, I just popped in this, just here's what we want to fill out. I always like to have at least, 3 big priorities that we can focus on as a team. And I'd like to get in front of the team what the targets are. What's our forecasted number? And then, of course, I like to break that down on a quarterly basis and a monthly basis. And I like to make that as clear as possible so our team can make great decisions. Now, one of the things I popped in here, and I see I made the note in the workbook as well, there are some great tools out there. We actually, myself, once I retired and became a coach of teams, I didn't want them to see them managing their plan on worksheets and Word and Excel. We just created a platform that helps you manage your plan. It's called Metronome Growth Systems. There's always been a 30-day free trial there, but I just wanted to put that out there. It's highly sought after right now because it's helping remote teams stay focused on their priorities. So you got to re-up your annual plan for the worst, work for the best. And then, of course, we have to do our quarterly plan. Right now, we're in calendar year Q2, right? Whether you're a leader, executive, on a team, we have our company plan. We are a team member. We have to know, what does our plan look like this quarter? And I know a lot of people have been sort of stopped dead around this because they're not sure what's happening. And that's why you can even do, the same sort of analysis of that best, worst, most likely. And I know lots of companies have. So if you have a quarterly plan, of course, we've adjusted it. We probably adjusted it twice because for us in North America, this really kicked in for us, this crisis, in the 3rd month of the 1st quarter calendar year, and now we're rolled into another quarter. So we really have to come up with, again, with our team, right? What is it? What's our forecasted gross revenue number? If it's, I've had some companies say to me, Shannon, it's 0 this quarter. We will not be making any money this quarter. And I think that's better to know than to not know. And then others is, Shannon, we're going to be 140% above what we thought we would be this quarter. Both of those scenarios we need to know because we need to make different decisions, prioritize different things that we need to get in place in order to solve that. So the cash in the bank is always up there. The number one lesson I learned why cash is king for me and for my businesses and for why we always went that way, and we didn't do it from the beginning, I wish we did, is we always forecast cash. Forecasting profit, again, Profit's not a noun. We can't put in a wheelbarrow and walk away with it. Cash, we can put in a wheelbarrow and walk away with it. Very important that we get our focus onto that, especially at this time. From there, this could be something that you may not be familiar with. If you're familiar with the Metronome Growth System framework, you'll be familiar with this, but you'll understand what it is. I'm just going to show it to you. So the last thing that I've done with all my teams is, one, understand who the functional owners and re-up in the organization, whether it's marketing, sales, development, finance, treasury, and make sure there's an owner. There's one person. And there could be one person that owns many. If you're a smaller business, like I know when I kicked off my first business in 2008, not a great year to kick off a new business, I just want to say. But, you know, myself and my founding partner wore many hats. And so it's okay to have more than one hat up there. We just have to, you know, you wear more than one hat. We just have to be clear that it's harder to get through this time. And the more we get clear ownership of the functional roles, the better. And then KPFM stands for a key process flow map. And I know in your workbook, I actually said which webinar to watch if you've never had one of these. But it's as simple as you see there. It's taking the top functions in your business and honing in on the ones that make you money, that actually make money. Yes, the other ones are important, don't get me wrong, but get focused in on the ones that make money and make sure that we are, you know, lining up and understanding what is flowing through there. Some people say to me, Shannon, there's nothing flowing through there right now because we are not open, right? Got it. Got it. But what are we going to do to open up? And we need to talk about how we're going to do that. And we need a picture to understand. And we use this all the time. And lots of my organizations who are to go back to actually relook at their plan, we go here. Because it's like, do we have to redesign how we're going to make money? This is a picture of what functions need to work together and how to make money, who owns it, and what do we need to do to make sure that we can, you know, when we open the doors, we can do it as we limp through this time or as we're blasting through this time, depending what industry you're in. How are we going to do that and get focused on it and to actually get it up in front of us? So that's the review and all the steps in execution. And there's a lot there. I know there's a lot there. You're probably like going, wow, this fire hose is getting really, really heavy on my face. But the big thing is that we have to take these steps. And some people have some of these things in place and some people don't. And so you got to work with what you have and fill in the gaps to where you need to go. And so when we think about that, we're into step 3, thinking about people. And I know there's a lot of people who have been laid off, furloughed, out of work. I can go on. And then there's people who are in there working really hard. We're working mega hours. So I get that. But part of this in looking forward now, why now is the time to plan, and I'm going to say there's never not a time to plan, is we've got to actually take, you know, a good view of our team, line it up to the scenarios that we talked about of who is needed to deliver. And one of the things that we do on a regular, every 90 days, with all my companies and with all the teams I work with, including my own, we always just do a quick assessment of our team. Who's exceeding performance, who's meeting expectations, who's living the core values, who is not living the core values, just to get a good handle of who our best players are, because those are the people I want to keep on my team no matter what, and figure out how do we take them over and through this time with us. And then, you know, we know most companies, the largest expense we have in our company is our payroll. And so we're trying to actually be as responsible as possible, both to the company and our team members. And I think the government plans around the world have been amazing to actually help with that. But why I go from a key process flow map, which shows how we design our company, to who is on our team, because it's no different than a starting lineup in a soccer game. We have to figure out who's going to play what position. And if we look a little different now, we need to go look at our team and find our best team members that maybe they're going to have to play a different position for a little while, right? Until we can get through this. Maybe we don't. Maybe we need more people. I've had some of my clients are, their businesses are at the top end of this, and they've hired many people in, and they want to be really clear on where they're hiring them and who they need and what is the, key, measure and expectation of those roles. Then we have to do a team plan for each of the scenarios. And all my companies have done that team plan. Here's the best case. Here's who's all on the team. Here's the most likely case. Here's the worst case. And I know how hard it is to actually work through this part. I'm not gonna lie. It's one of the hardest things any leader has to do, is trying to level set their plan to their team and their team members. And there are lots of team members that are no longer working with companies, and not because they weren't doing a great job. It's because there is no business and nothing for them to do, and everyone's trying to figure out what to do there. So once you get the team planned in the scenarios, we want to map it to the cash forecast. And so why we want to do that, and why I really stress that you actually take this all the way to the cash forecast if you haven't done it with the scenarios, because then you can see the different makeups on how the teams, the people that we're choosing for the best, how does that line up to the dollars? I think it's really important you take that step. And it's the one where a lot of organizations stumble here a bit. Even today, later this afternoon, I'm on with one of my teams or the US, and we'll spend a good, all the afternoon working through these plans, right? Just this part. It's good, people are involved, so we need to take good care in this area. So we want an 8-player team. We want the best team lined up to deliver on whatever our business is looking like, that we plan it to go forward. I know that's obvious, but that last step takes time, and most people underestimate the time that takes. And it's easy if we didn't know the people, it's way easier to do it. But of course we know the team, so it's much harder to do that step. And I can't tell you, give yourself time to do it well, and take care of the people that we might have to send on their way and terminate or lay off or furlough, as well as the team that's going to stay behind to work with us, right, to get through this time. It's hard on both sides. So the last step is step 4. And even thinking about this, I'm just going to scratch the surface on this, and this next slide is probably going to be too much for this time. But I'm just going to layer it in, because as we think about at the end of the month, in 2 weeks' time, we're going to do another webinar thinking about this build, but then thinking about even looking out further, looking at our long-term and our near-term, and that 3-year highly achievable goal. What are some of the key steps you can take in order to actually create confidence in a very, unconfident time, so that you know that you're taking the steps forward with your team together? If you've already done all those steps and you're like, okay, good, Shannon, I got it, check, 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 and you're at this stage, my best advice is to take a step back, and I put this in the playbook. Take a step back and look at your core customer. Look at your core customer. Now that's step 4 in this, because we've done some of the other steps. Step 1 was confirm or evolve your 3-year highly achievable goal. I already stopped in on that. Step 2 was your key process flow map, KPFM. Okay, so that's a good one to design our business. Step 3 is the market map. So great market map, right, on looking out into the business. And then we want to look at our core customer. Now, we're looking to see, has the needs of your core customer changed? And why I'm asking that is because I know, and each time we hit a downturn, we went back, maybe knowingly or not, and you might have already done this, has your core customer needs changed? Meaning, we always prioritize the needs. What's the number 1 need? What's the number 2 need? What's the number 3 need? And I know in 2008, in my second business, Subservio, that as the year went on, the needs of our core customer changed. The number 3 need became the number 1 need. And the number 1 need moved to like number 5 based on what happened in the marketplace. And so this allowed us to re-up and reposition ourselves, up our value proposition, get clear on our differentiating actions that we needed to drive in to hold our position. So this is like, you know, the core customer is a foundation of strategy, and our external environment has really changed, as you know. So we got to go back to the foundation. Key process flow map is the foundation of execution, core customer, foundation of strategy. That's why I want you to think here, work here. And I really want you to think about that piece. If you've got the others, you're in good shape in your business. Let's go to, you know, thinking about our core customer. I know because, you know, I think every company out there has talked so much to their core customers, especially if they can't sell, they're reaching out to connect. There's no better time to really understand and ask and listen for those top needs. So I'm going to leave that one there. And the one thing I wanted to put in, just so you know, is that as we prepare for the next webinar, and this is a flow, right? And this never stops once we get it going. And I know you're living that in your business. But we popped up just, there's an 11-part webinar series just on that piece, all the steps in the 3HAG. And we popped it up. If you put the code in from our website, Stay Home Learn, that's there, that's available. You can pop in and out on any one of these pieces that I shared as we work through today to help you, guide you if you don't have that done and you want to get that done. So that takes us through, you know, the 5 steps, because I had a step 0 there, which is take care of yourself first. That's also downloadable off of our site, the full. I know it's in your playbook, but it's not as big as it could be. And then from there, this is a build. This is always a build, day, week, month, quarter, year, right? CEOs always have to get their heads around this first. I get it. And then you think about it a lot, and you've been not only thinking about it, you've been wearing it, right? I understand that. And then we've got to include our teams, and include our teams early and often, all the way around. I'll map your cash, the key process flow map, aligning to the goals and the plan and the strategy, and making sure the score is transparent. Because as we do this, and as we go around and we make this part of our habit and our rhythm and our system, it gets easier and easier. All of this gets easier. And the big thing now is we just want to confirm that we're doing the right things, that we're focusing on what matters, that we have a cash runway to get us through this time, and that that will reduce our anxiety through the visibility of it, right? We have the best team lined up, and we know what the score should be. So with that, I'm going to bring this around to a close, and we can do Q&A through the Q&A panel. But we've got to map it all out, and you've got to go with your plan first, and then we have to understand cash, execution, people, and strategy. And I wouldn't always necessarily do that, but at a time like this, these are the needs. And I found myself in other times where I had absolutely lived through this as a CEO in a business. This is exactly what we did. We stepped through over and over and over again, and it really helped form the foundation of our repeatable growth system, the Metronome Growth System. So from there, right, we have the Metronome Growth System framework. These are fundamental pieces that exist in every business out there. We know it's so easy to write a plan down. It's a lot harder to line up the team to work with us, to actually make decisions with us and be able to tell the story on where we're going. The story, you know, changed really quickly. And so we all need to bring everybody along with that story, because we're still trying to build the longest cash runway, good times and bad times. And we want to ensure that we get focused, right? We get focused on how to do business in our new world and our new normal, and that we help each other. And so we've got complimentary coaching going on every day off of our site, Metronome United. We have 70 coaches based around the world. I think almost every half hour is usually offered almost every day of the week. It's amazing what the coaches of Metronome United have stepped up to do. So that is there. If you have questions, you need comments, you just need to talk to someone. Am I doing this right? Please book a call with one of our coaches. The other thing that I already mentioned, the 11-part series, I mentioned the 30-day trial of Metronome Growth Systems. I'm usually really terrible at remembering to actually offer those, even though they're sitting on our sites. We're also doing in June a Metronome boot camp. And I didn't even want to call it boot camp, but I just want to get virtually the leadership teams together that want to actually get this work done for now and the future. And in the future, I'm known for roundtables, metronome roundtables, where CEOs and leadership teams get together to keep this alive throughout. So we decided that we'd evolve ourselves too. We usually do this in person. We're going to do it virtually and offer it out there. And if you're of interest, please just send an email to info@metronomeunited.com. We'll have it all set up soon, but we're evolving too. So please use the Q&A button. Happy to answer questions. I'm going to pop it up. Let's see if I can. Just a quick one I can put to bed is, what is a PML? I said, and if that's me talking fast in the fire hose, it's a P&L, so a profit and loss statement. So this is where cash in, cash out. That's how I like to think of it. And so that's, absolutely vital at this time to do it at a cash basis. So an example of a widget, I mentioned widget, and I'm known for widget. These are the things that flow through your business. So if I take an example using a key process flow map, the things that would flow through a key process flow map, and I'm going to go really basic, and I'll use Paradata as the example. So we were a global internet payment service provider. So how we would set up is a thing that would flow through is a raw lead would come into marketing. Marketing would do something with that lead, and a marketing qualified lead would come out of marketing, and it would go to sales. The sales would convert that lead and into an sales opportunity, and then they would flow it through and do some things with it, and hopefully, close a contract. That contract would then flow into implementation, right? So these are the things. I hope that helps. It's a non-fiscal thing that flows through your business. It's not only what people buy from you, it's all the things that flow through. People in organizations can relate to the things that flow through their company more so than the dollars that flow through their company. Leadership teams really understand dollars, and the rest of the team understand the things that flow through. How many phone calls do they need to take? How many cases do they need to close? How many merchants do they need to support, set up, train, and so on. So I hope that that helps. So I'm going to go to one. Okay, so I know people are asking how the playbook around the PDF is locked, so we can actually figure that one out. And then, how do you determine the change in need of your core customer? That is a great question. So number one is, I would go, if I was doing this with a client, I would confirm what the needs were before the crisis happened, before the pandemic. We would say, we describe that core customer right down to the individual. I really like to use Bob Bloom's work. He wrote a book called Inside Advantage, and it's all about describing the core customer down to the individual. So who they are, and then understanding their need. So our core customer for Paradata, if I give you an example, actually no, let me do Subservio, because that's a good one in the 2008 example that I used earlier. In Subservio, our core customer at that time was a broker dealer, and the broker dealer was absolutely the buyer of our post-trade automated compliance platform for buy and sell of trading, a buy and sell trading platform. So super technical, but they were the core customer. And their number one need was to ensure they remained, you think I'm gonna say compliant, but they're able to grow, right? So grow up and make their back office efficient. Up until that platform, it was all paper. So we actually made their back office more efficient so they could grow faster. Less compliance people, easier, automated, and whatnot. So their number one need was efficiency, and number two was they didn't want to spend any money on compliance, which is really interesting. And number three, why did they do all that? Was they didn't want to go to jail because they had to follow the regulations. And that sounds really harsh. Maybe we didn't exactly write it like that, but that was, they wanted to stay on board, on the right side of the regulations. When 2008 hit and the market sort of went upside down on us, And a lot of people said, why are you even selling to broker-dealers on Wall Street? They're the hardest hit. They still needed what we had because we offered a compliance solution. And their number one need in order to open their business was to show the regulators that they were actually compliant. And when you did it with paper, you know what? You couldn't show anyone you were compliant. When you did it with an automated platform, you could actually do that in a much faster way, in hours rather than days and weeks. And so that became the number one need. And so the first thing you have to do is you have to know what they were, right? And you must talk to your core customer and understand what they are now. That's why most of my clients, if their business is slowing down or has slowed down or has been shut down, the number one thing they've been doing is calling their clients, calling their customers to understand what their needs are now. And no better time. Everybody wants to connect because we're so unconnected right now other than virtually. So people do want to talk, and the feedback from my clients have been amazing in order to understand that. Once you think you understand what the needs are, now I've had some clients that the needs haven't changed at all. So they confirmed them and they're now still driving the same directions. For others that they've shifted, we've now gone and rechecked the positioning in the market. And we're looking at the market map and we're looking at what we did before and is it still going to matter now? It may not. And that's what's really important right now. A core customer actually buys from you at a profit, right? Because you serve their number one need, their number two need, their number three need. That's why it's so important. So I hope I answered that one in a way. So the next question, I'm just going to read this for a sec. Is there a way to account for the unknown in a 3-hag? Yeah, so the big thing around an unknown in a 3-hag, so as I said earlier, all my clients have a 3-hag, right? And when we went back to confirm and check in, like an unknown, like it's a black swan event. There's not a way to say, oh, I'm gonna plan for that storm. The only thing we can plan as a company for a storm that comes like a pandemic is to have cash in the bank. That sounds so simple. But of my clients, because we've been really focused on cash, because I got burned early on in my first company and almost, blew that company because I wasn't focused on having cash runway, right, in our bank all the time, right? We always had a set amount of cash. Now this is as big as we've ever seen. Is it, and we don't even know how long. So that creativity around cash and having cash in the bank is key to help us drive to that 3-hag. That cash in the bank is for your 3-year highly achievable growth. And that cash in the bank is to weather any storm that might come your way. And I really hope that, if you have cash in the bank today, I hope you do. And I hope that we actually, you actually map this out and find that disciplined habit around it. It's how I learned it out of the first downturn market I faced as a CEO, to make sure that I never wanted to go through that again. And I wanted to have the cash to get there, to give myself, my team, my shareholders the best opportunity to, get to the other side of this. So the changing needs of a core customer is different in a 3-hag. That happens. And those are things that how you plan for that is you never stop going back. It's why we call it a strategy system. We never stop going back to check in on the market through the market map. There's another great view that we create. It's called the attribution framework. It's my favorite. It's a way to actually see your strategy live in the marketplace. And we always check back in that. And we need to check in with our customers themselves and look at that market map to see maybe it's shifted and maybe our opportunity is somewhere else in that market map. And we also want to see, because we'll see new companies coming in. We've seen lots of shifts in marketplace. And if we can't look all at the same picture, it's really, really difficult for us to actually, as a leadership team, think about together how we're going to solve for that. I'm going to take the next one. Hopefully that helps. This one says, as a startup business, what would you recommend doing to identify your core customer and their traits? You have an assumption of your core customer, but you're not sure how to confirm this and to get primary research on the customer traits. So in both of my businesses, we started from the zero and worked our way up into big business. And what I can say is the first time I did it in Paradata, I don't think we did it very well at all. In Subservio, we took those 12 steps I showed you in the 3-HAG way, and we did all of it even before we opened the doors of our business. And one of the things we did to actually confirm our core customer was we actually called them. I know that sounds like really obvious, but we called them and we had what we thought, but we just confirmed it. There's really no other way than to actually do that. And sometimes you're testing it too. Sometimes you're already, we hadn't opened our doors yet. We had, what we thought was the right, need in the market and fit. And that was early 2008, and we totally got schooled. It was the same core customer, but at the end of the year, their needs were totally different in 2008, and we had to figure that out quickly and turn around our strategy to position ourselves properly. But in a new company, you have an opportunity to you got to go out and you got to find that information. And it's a bit of guerrilla tactics. Now, if it's a new business that's going into a big market, again, there's nothing better than a phone call, and people are willing to take phone calls right now. I got to tell you, I can't imagine all the people are answering phones right now because I think they're so tired of Zoom. There's lots, so dial them up. It's the best way to do it. Should your core customer be one group or more than one group is okay. So I love a one core customer, but I know that's not realistic. And I know as companies grow and evolve through marketplaces, core customers evolve too, and it happened in my businesses. So why I shared with you in your playbook that core customer analysis sheet that has 3 columns is so that if you think you have more than one core customer, your best thing to do is to get the description down of each one of them, map out the needs, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 across, and the benefits on how you're going to serve them, to see, looking for similarities of if you actually have the resources to serve both groups. So many companies out there are trying to serve more than one customer, and they should be serving their core customer to the nth degree, and they're leaving profit on the table for some of these other ones that they might have said yes to early on in their business. And that core customer, I can go on for days on core customer because it's all about how are you going to get to the other side, and the amount of time and resources you focus on the customer that buys at a profit is where you want to spend your time. The ones who have the lowest percentage of profit or they lose you money, we don't want to spend time there unless you're investing to go into a new market. Then we have to go and do all that work. So I hope that helps on the core customer. It's foundational to strategy. And that there's one more. And if there's more than one core group, how many is okay? Well, I usually I've seen companies show me 6 core customers, and I go, okay, let's do the work, and they're sort of humming and hawing around all the work you got to do, and I go, well, let's do the ones that drive the largest percentage of profit line to the largest percentage of revenue. And most people who know me know I really don't like percentages. So, but that's one of the few times I'll use that to help hone in on maybe it's these 2 we should start with. And let's see what we can learn and then go out from there. So another question on there is, where do you get the contact numbers to call customers that haven't purchased from you yet? I actually just, I love that question. I usually just look out to who we think. I mean, there's so many ways to communicate out there. And I was brutal for this in my business. My team knew me for this. I always wanted to call the customer, and I would, back in the late 90s, it wasn't as easier actually to, look it up on the web and find their phone number and all that. But we would absolutely, and even today, my clients, I make sure it's part of their weekly, right, to actually look into their marketplace, either to talk to their existing customers or who they think might be a new customer. And so to find those numbers, just guerrilla tactics again, right? Contacts, websites, all of that. And I know that you're going, well, everyone's got a cell phone and that's really hard. The other way that I've seen lots of people do it as well is through LinkedIn. And I get lots of messages through LinkedIn of people asking, of just, understanding, would these things be important to me? And they're actually just telling me what needs they serve. And so I think there's lots of creativity there now, and even more so than in the past, to actually do that. But I can't tell you enough that you've got to talk to your core customers, especially if they're new. Today, it's even harder because there's no face-to-face conferences, even if you're launching it new and you thought it was for this segment and that segment. So we have to be really creative to talk to your core customer. Your existing ones, easy, call them up. New ones, you got to, like, I actually used a lot of my network to get to some companies identified in Subservio that we thought were core customers. And then we went and set up a meeting with them. And it was just by how we thought it was positioned to help with them. Now, I just want to make sure I answered all the questions. I love the ones on core customers, as you can tell. If there's any other questions, I'm good. Otherwise, I will maybe turn it over to Sherry, who I think has popped on with me. Is that true, Sherry?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm here.
And I think, yep, I can hear you. And I'm going to pop off the my screen, I think, or because I think
popping off, popping on.
You pop on. I'm just going to stop share because I think Gary just wanted to, and you want to pop up a couple of slides. So I'll do it that way. That's good.
Well, I just want to thank you first, Shannon, before you pop off. Thank you so much for being here today and giving your time and your advice. We appreciate it. I know it's a very difficult time right now, and people are just trying to find answers on how to navigate this time, this new normal, not only in their personal lives, but also in their professional and business lives. And I know that just from listening to you, I've learned a lot just for our business as well. And I just want to do a little shout out to you and let you know that I have 2 signed books.
Oh, yeah. Right, that's awesome.
So I feel really special, but I just want everybody to know that's out there that you can, I'm probably sure you can get these on the website or through
Amazon,
yeah.
Audible,
Oh, these are great. They probably won't be, they probably won't be signed like mine are. But I want to thank you for those, Shannon. That was great. Thank you so much.
No, you're very welcome. Thank you so much. I'm passionate about this, and having lived through times like these, it's good to talk to other people. So I appreciate the opportunity.
That's great. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and please be safe. And we'll see you again at the end of the month on May 8th. Yes.
Yeah, sounds great. Okay, I'm gonna pop my video off.
Okay. Whoa. Okay. Everyone that's still out there, just quickly, I want to please remind everybody about our nominations for the top 100 Canada's most powerful women. The deadline is for June the 8th. Shannon, as you know or may not know, is one of our top 100 award winners in the entrepreneur category. This is really important that we recognize women across Canada, especially during a time like this. There's a lot of amazing women that deserve our recognition. Also, if you have enjoyed this workshop and any other webinars that you've attended, please, by all means, please join our community today. We have a special offer that's running from now until December. Given this this pandemic, we want to make sure that it's reasonable and it brings great value to you. So it's $8.25 a month or a one-time payment of $99. So please join our wonderful community. Both men and women are welcome. We want to thank Patricia Karen Geiget. She is a Top 100 Hall of Fame winner. She actually was the inspiration behind our webinars for the artwork. So we want to thank her for her inspiration. And then to our partners, thank you all so much. We couldn't do this without you. And I guess I'll be making some phone calls to you next week based on Shannon's advice. So thank you very much for your support. Again, please remember that there's 2 other workshops coming up in part 2. This is a 4-part series, so this is our second part of the webinars. Next week is Courageous Living and Mindset. That should be very interesting. I'm really looking forward to attending that. And then on May 28th, we have Shannon back again, who will continue her conversation about the big, hairy, audacious goal and the 3 HAG. And just meaning to just keep evolving them and keep planning. You know, don't stop planning and mapping your cash and understanding your brutal facts and your client base as well. So don't stop. As well, we have one more, our last session of our upcoming meditation session with Ritu Gupta. Ritu is another one of our top 100 award winners. Lovely young woman. You will love her meditation sessions. You can take a look at that on our website for more information. And then also, we have a lot going on, as you can see. We have our free virtual book club series. And on June the 11th, you'll be able to visit with Ann Kaplan as she shares her story on how to be successful in spite of yourself. And thank you again for attending our webinar. Be safe, everybody. Be healthy, and all the best to you. See you next time.